Hi, I'm Chrissy,
And I'm Jess.
and this is
Financial Progress.
welcome back to our channel or our podcast. So, Jess, I've been hearing a lot about compound interest, and can you explain to our audience what it is?
Of course. I love compound interest. It's like my bestie. Compound interest is interest on a deposit that is calculated based on both the initial principal and that accumulated interest from like the previous periods or previous months that you have money like in your account. So in other words, it's interest on interest, which can help your money grow so much faster than simple interest, which is only calculated only on the principal amount.
Yes, so that sounds so interesting. So, can you just explain a little bit more about how it works?
All right, well, let's break it down so you can have like a clear vision and for our audience to understand it better. So let's imagine that you have $1,000 in your savings account, and that savings account earns 5% interest. So let me be clear, 5% interest is not happening at your local bank. That's like a higher yield savings account. But we're going to use that as an example. So $1,000 in your savings, you have 5% interest that gets earned per year on that account. If it's simple interest, you'll earn $50 each year. And then after 3 years, you'll have a total of $1,150. So you earned $150 on that $1,000 after 3 years. Hopefully, does that make sense?
So that's for simple interest, right?
Simple interest.
So what does it look like if that was compound interest?
That's the best part. So with compound interest, the interest is calculated based on the initial principal plus any interest you've already earned. So after that first year, you earn that $50. So now you have $1,050. In the second year, this is where compound interest is your bestie. That 5% interest is now calculated on the $1,050.
Nice.
So now instead of earning another $50, it goes up and you'll earn $52.50, which giving you a total of $1,102.50. This process continues and the interest amount grows each year because it's being calculated on a larger amount each time.
And wow, so that really can add up over time. And there's so many different places that you can put your money to grow compound interest. So, Jess, where can I get this compound interest from?
Absolutely. So there are some places like, the savings account, but again, higher yield savings is where you get the higher interest versus your local bank. Like I only get like 0.2% in my local bank. So you're not going to get the best compound interest there. Maybe some banks will have it, but higher yield savings banks are the best for savings account. And then there are CDs, certificates of deposit, that people also use. I don't really use that because you can't really touch that money there, but that's just my personal opinion. But now here is where the compound interest kicks ass. All right. The investment accounts,
Yes.
investment vehicles like stocks and bonds and mutual funds, they don't directly pay compound interest, but the reinvestment of dividends and interest can result in compounding returns. And on top of that, retirement accounts is also an investment account, right? So accounts like 401ks and IRAs often involve investments that can benefit from compound interest over time, especially if you start early and contribute regularly. And if you start early, like teens and early 20s, you'll be a millionaire by probably about 50.
Yes. What's very interesting is I was let go from a company. I was laid off and our jobs were offshored. And that happened about 7 years ago, I would say. And at that time, I had my 401k and I was so tempted to just, cash it out so many times.
Yeah, touch it. You're like,
yes. And I'm so relieved that I never did that
Mhm.
because when I left the company, it was like about a balance of like $34,000 in there.
Mhm.
And I didn't touch it. And then I just checked like our investment accounts yesterday. And I do this like kind of quarterly, just go in. And that money, without contributing a single dime to it again,
Mhm.
grew to $94,000.
Wow. So
Yes.
you haven't contributed at all.
I haven't contributed at all
Wow.
in the
So
past.
that's the power of
Yes,
compound
that
interest.
is the power, and not taking
Mhm.
that money out, even
Mhm.
how I was so tempted so many times, and when I was really struggling financially, I wanted
Mhm.
to just dig into it, and I was just like, "No, I need to let it sit there, let it grow." A couple years ago when we were gonna buy a house, we were tempted to,
Mhm.
dig into it to have a larger down payment. It was just yeah. I'm
That's
so glad that
amazing.
we didn't
That's
do it.
a success story. And that
Yes.
shows you right there. So it grew 60,000 within 7 years and you didn't even put anything in there.
That's insane. Yes.
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 And you have yours in a retirement account, correct?
Yes, it's a 401k.
So
And I
it's in the
actually
401k.
never moved it. I was considering moving it to an IRA, and since
Mhm.
it was doing good there, I was just like,
You left it
might
there.
as well just leave it there if it's doing good. And I would
Mhm.
compare the returns to my other investment accounts with my new employer, and I wasn't getting like
It wasn't as good.
it wasn't as good, but this year seems to have decreased. So I don't know what the change was, or
Mhm.
yeah, so this year my rate of return was lower in that account, and I was like,
Okay.
maybe I'm considering moving it now. So still trying to decide what to do.
And you probably can still check to see like what funds they are in now. And then if you want to combine them and then like just switch those into those funds, you can do that too. They always say that when the more money you have in there, the more money is the compound interest rate. Because
Yes,
if you
yes.
combine it, more money is going to go in there. So maybe that's something to think about.
Yeah, I kind of like having separate accounts because I have two separate accounts with my employer, with my current employer, and then with my old company, I had my 401k, and then we had this other like little small tiny pension. It was like $1,000 that they put into
Mm-hmm.
an IRA account, but it wasn't like an investment IRA account. It was just like a bank IRA account. And that one, like they would charge a fee every year.
Mm-hmm.
And the fee, since it was only $1,000, like I wasn't getting enough interest to cover the fee. So it was eaten into that money every year since I left.
Yeah.
So I actually just transferred it to an IRA account and have it invested in there, and it's already growing. And I'm like, why didn't I do that? Like
Yeah.
when I first moved, and it was all like, oh, so just $1,000, but like I, that money grows, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the power of compound interest, like I
Power
don't
of
know what
compound
that money would have
interest.
grew to by
Yeah.
now, but I know some years for my 401k, like some years I saw like a 20% return, so
Yeah.
like that was nice. Some years were lower, but for the majority of the time it
Mm-hmm.
was mostly growing. And I think about 2 years ago, I was a little afraid because my retirement account really took a hit.
Yeah.
So it was like pretty high, and then it went down, and then I was like, "Oh my gosh," like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't wanna move it because 'cause I've been considering moving it, but when it goes down that low, you really don't wanna move it because you're
No.
losing that money. So,
I know they
I'm
always say
glad
be
that I waited.
patient.
It recovered, and yeah, it's growing, and it's just nice to have that money
Mm-hmm.
set aside, and, I'm glad I just didn't touch it. I know it takes a lot of willpower to do that, but if
Mm-hmm.
you're considering taking out your 401k loan for something, just look at other options. There's, if you need a short-term loan or something like that, not a payday loan, but if you need to take a loan and pay it off quickly, then do that. If you're experiencing some type of hardship or if you need some kind of money fast, but definitely as a last resort to use your 401k if
Because you lose all that
yeah,
interest.
because you lose all that interest, and
Mhm.
that could be compounding. I also did take a 401k loan before while I was employed with that same company, and I didn't realize what I was doing at the time. That I thought it was the best loan ever, right? Because you're paying yourself back interest. But you don't realize when you pull that $10,000 out of your 401k that you're no longer earning interest on that
Mm-hmm.
$10,000. So that really hurts you in the long run. And it's something I didn't realize. So definitely look into other options if you're considering any type of 401k loans, or if you're considering tapping into your 401k at all. You
Mm-hmm.
saw the power that I just described, and it's amazing. So,
And you know what's crazy? A lot of people talk about like the rule of 72, and that means that like whatever money you have in there is going to double within 6 to 7 years. Yours tripled. It was like almost
not
tripled.
quite triple, but yeah.
Almost. Very close. Because double would have been probably 70 something, right? So 70,000 almost. And it's reached over 90,000. So that's amazing.
Yeah. And I
One
wish I
thing,
had exact dates, because I'm saying 7 years, but I'm estimating because I've been at
mhm,
my job 5 years, and I think I was unemployed for about
mhm,
two, going to school.
yeah.
So I'm saying
It's still
about,
amazing.
yeah, I'm saying about 7 years, but I don't have the exact numbers,
Hmm.
the exact
But
number
yeah.
of years.
So the two things is most important is compound interest and time. And when we say time, is just like let it like build up all by itself. Don't rush the process. Don't force yourself to take out any money from there. So time and compound interest is very important. The sooner, the better. When you decide to open up an IRA, individual retirement account, right? Make sure I say that. When you decide to open that up, you have to make sure that when you put your money in there, that you're selecting a fund. If you
Yes.
don't select the fund, it's not going to grow. And there's a lot of different funds you can choose from. You just have to do some research when you look them up and see what's the average rate of return. So when you look up the S&P 500, for example, the average rate of return of that is 10%, which is great. It's
Yes.
better than a savings account. So just make sure that you look into what investment funds you want to put your money into.
Yes, and definitely look to see if there's any expenses in that fund that you choose as well, because that's something that I didn't really pay attention to before, is
Hmm.
seeing how much I'm being charged in
Yes.
fees from picking a fund. So definitely
Yeah.
look at that expense ratio and pick the lowest ones that
Yes.
still perform well, which are
Hmm. So
usually, I would just say, an index fund, but definitely do
yes.
research, look into that. But yeah, that's all for this episode.
Hmm.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Just wanted to add that this is just a conversation about money between two best friends. This is not financial advice. Please seek the help of a financial advisor before making any financial decisions.